There's a quote, those who take a risk temporarily lose their footing. Those who never do may never find themselves, or something like that. Despite I didn't come from money, but I found a way to live my dream life now.
What did you have to get good at to get to where you are now? And did you always know you were going to get here? Emmy award-winning filmmaker renowned for his extensive work in music-centric storytelling. Wayne Price. Hi, I'm Topaz. I'm the founder of the Emmy award-winning series, The End. The End has been an incredible journey for the last 12 years. We've brought in over 1,250 pairs to have incredible conversations, and I've learned a lot. Through this work, I've had the privilege of witnessing the bold, the beautiful, and the heart-wrenching, the conversations that reveal us. I've watched, I've listened, I've learned, and now I'm ready to share. David S. Viscott has a great quote that always inspires me. The purpose of life is to find your gift. The work of life is to develop your gift. And the meaning of life is to give it away. And what I've seen from my 48 years on this planet, through incredible experiences, is that life shapes us. Things happen to us, and we interpret those things, and that shapes us into offerings we can offer others. So the expedition that I'm embarking upon, that I'm inviting you to join, is a journey of conversations. I'm going to speak to people that I find incredible. I'm going to be asking them questions that reveal their life's journey. What are the hidden gifts and challenges and offerings that they have? And on this journey, we will uncover the message the universe has written into your life, for yourself and for others. Are you listening to what your life is telling you? I don't know where we'll go. I'm just going to be very transparent about it. And that's why I welcome you to this journey that we're calling Getting Under the Skin, or GUTS for short. Thank you, and let's see where we go. Beautiful people, welcome back to another episode of Getting Under the Skin. I'm Topaz, and I'm very excited to have you here. Today we have Wayne Price. Wow. Before I tell you about my relationship to him, let me read off to you and let me explain to you who this incredible soul is. Wayne Price is an Emmy award-winning filmmaker renowned for his extensive work in music-centric storytelling. He's directed numerous short-form pieces featuring prominent artists such as John Legend, Mark Ronson, and Imagine Dragons. Additionally, Price has directed 2 feature documentaries, Heart-Worn Highways Revisited and 311 Enlarged to Show Detail 3. And The Doorman has a low rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but it cracked me up, that movie. It's a great comedy. In 2020, Price's work on a Frontline Heroes documentary for NBC earned him an Emmy Award, highlighting his ability to capture poignant human experiences. More recently, he has been involved in projects exploring the intersection of artificial intelligence and creative expression. One notable example is his collaboration with poet InQ on the piece Dreams, which experiments with AI-generated visuals to complement spoken word poetry. This episode isn't just about talking with someone who's incredibly cool and interesting. It's actually about risk, plain and simple. It's about discovering who you are and sometimes not taking the greatest offer, but taking the small offer that your soul wants to take. I didn't know this about Wayne, but as we started talking, I realized that him and I have very similar experiences where you have that big offer and you actually don't take it. You don't take the logical offer. You reject the logical offer. You reject the intelligent one, and you take the one where your soul is yearning for. And so this is a conversation exploring that. Is following your heart's desires and seeing what takes you. And sometimes it takes you in circles, but it brings you back. And what's also interesting is that Wayne and I, we know each other from New York, from being filmmakers and the years of living there. But now we're both kind of living these agrarian lives outside of the city, a little bit more rural. And I find that interesting. And I want to take the opportunity to utilize this platform, GUTS, Getting Under the Skin, to have a deeper conversation with him and to learn about him. To learn most importantly, how did life shape him? For what? What's his interpretation of his life's journey? And so we jumped into it. I think you can tell from once you jump in from the excitement we have of really seeing each other again for so long, catching up. We had a great time. And just bear with us. The energy is there. And, sometimes when you're in those conversations, when the energy is there, kind of bumps around. It bumps around, but I promise you, it always returns to something of value and to something of interest. And we went exploring his life story, being in New York early in the 2000s, how he went and really found his way as a filmmaker, found his way to his wife and his 3 children, now living outside of San Francisco on a beautiful farm, still making films, still making commercials, still making work, still participating. But he has a beautiful life journey, and very happy that we've been able to share time together and share that time, that conversation here with you. So without further ado, Wayne Price. Dude, thanks for jumping on. I'm very transparent about this journey I'm on with this podcast. But it's basically like us taking a halftime break from life, our souls, and just sharing trail notes of our lives. Because I do believe that like the story of your life can be medicine for others. The story of someone else's life can be medicine for us. So, cool?
Great context. Great Emmy, too.
Oh, I got to have that. Where's yours? You got to have yours.
Yeah, mine is like, it's in my living room, but it's like my kids use it as like a paperweight. Like I get worried. They make forts, and like it's like the perfect weight to hold like the sheet.
It's a great paper.
It's actually perfect. That's exactly the way it should be used.
But it's also like no. But I've been doing all these interviews for the podcast, interviews for the book, so I'm learning like subconscious placement to put it there in the back. It's like part of the spiel.
That's right. Your story's being told in the frame.
I have a little exercise I do with these things, these questions. It's a good icebreaker, and it's nice because they're random. But
check it out. I literally did not do this because I knew we were going there. I had a party the other night, and I pulled these out because this one is couples edition, long term, and I have another one that you sent me right here. This is the healing edition.
Does it work? Like, do you Michelle play it? Like, when do you ever use them?
We play. Okay, we used them once really effectively. We did it like kind of for shits and giggles, like just hanging out, but we didn't do like a full, like I would love to do like a intentional session. We did an intentional session with my parents, which was amazing. And not only my parents, my brother and his husband. So we were all there. It was like around Mother's Day last year. Case in point, we pulled out some cards. And I said, hey, and my mom was really kind of a little bit making fun and a little bit like apprehensive. But we ended up having probably the best conversation we've maybe ever had. Lasted about an hour and a half. We went around the room. People chose, and it was great. My brother everybody was just like, cool. It's like someone did the work for you. Topaz. Thank you, Topaz.
Like, I got to tell you, I think I seduced my wife by finally telling her like year 7 and building this business company. Because in the beginning it was like, interactive media, da da da. Finally, like, they always like distill it down. She's like, what do you do? I'm like, I sell questions.
That's a needed business though.
It's weird. And that's what I'm realizing by doing. So I jump into the podcast world, and I just had this thing like, I'm going to do 100 podcasts. I don't care who it is. I want to just practice and learn about communication and seeing what's sticky and where's their interest out there. And what I'm learning is that there's a great deal of interest in the construction of questions. Like, and then in me sharing what comes like naturally, I was like, wait, why does that work? I have no idea. Like, why does that? And I had, in writing the book, I had like, wait, it works because this. Oh, and now it sounds super cool on the podcast. You're like, if you start a question with is, are, do, would, should, it's a binary question. Like, I don't care what comes after. Fucking, I didn't realize that till I wrote the book. And then not even in the book, I didn't realize it until I was in the podcast. Now I got these great sound bites that make me sound really smart, but it's only because I've been talking about it for so long.
People do not know how to ask questions. They do not. It's like awkward for people.
Dude, amazing. So you played it last night?
No. We had a party last weekend. It was like a loose 10th anniversary party. I say loose, like my wife doesn't like to. We did a very small wedding, like 40 people, just family.
Oh, really? Just family? It was just family.
Yeah, well, we got engaged and then got married less than 40 days later. And, we're both people that my wife planned events for lots of people. I film events and work at events and been involved and all that. And we just were like, we don't want to make our wedding into another event that we stress over all the details. We just want to like celebrate our love in a beautiful place with family that we want there. And, it was hard. We have so many friends. So we just said, no friends. Let's just get some great pictures and It was just a handful of family, like our closest family members. So, but it's for people like us, and we're both community people. We figured like one day we'll maybe do like a celebration of love, and then it was 10 years rolled around. And of course, now that it's 10 years, we have this amazing place. We have a workshop in the back of our house that we converted into a school. And it's this like, it's a venue.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. Like, it's like, suddenly I'm like, wait a minute. Like, we could throw concerts, dance parties. That said, it's all ambitious when you have 3 small kids and a ton of stuff going on. And so we just were like, all right, we're just going to do this. And we had to change the date twice. And people were like, are you really doing this? We did it. It was amazing. We used candles that we had from our wedding and just lit. It was such a beautiful night. Like but the thing is, our community, like the people who came, represent such different walks of life, and they're all in the same room. And I love that. I really love that. And I thought for a minute, like, because we're big into like whenever I do an event, very intentional, like run of show. And this was a very loose one. This was like cocktail hour. We had someone that was making drinks and putting out like beautiful hors d'oeuvres, and then we were transitioning into the workshop for a really nice like farm to table dinner.
Yeah.
And I was like, we didn't have any like wow moment, any like, performance or anything. So I was like, maybe we'll just like give everybody a card, have them choose a card and have them ask a question. That was the intention. When people got here, I forgot, like, the most important thing about throwing an event is you as a host, your energy really is like if people like we were just excited to see people and a lot of people hadn't been to our place, and that's number 2, which is probably equally as important, is just the venue. Like, is the setting conducive? Does it have like a great vibe to it that people just want to sink in? And then everything else works itself out. Like, as long as there's like bathroom access and you have like some drinks and some minor food, like, so the flow was just on right away. Yeah. Like, people who didn't know each other were talking, and there was laughter, and people were like breaking out into different areas, and it was just happening organically. I was like, I don't want to force anything on this. I'm just kind of like, just let this flow as it is. So there you go. I had the cards. We never ended up using them. We didn't need to.
You didn't. Amazing. But you've always had that energy. And like in the,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first memory I have of meeting you was at New Blue, that I have of meeting you. Was at New Blue, which is one of my favorite bars. I don't even know if it's still open, but I love that spot. It was underneath when I first moved to New York. I was literally on the 3rd floor of that building. I was above it.
You were living on 62 Avenue C?
I think I was, when I first moved to New York, I like crashed in Williamsburg for like the first 3 weeks, and the apartment I found was right there. And I lived right above New Blue. And then years later, I think when I was making Americana, and Corinne introduced us in New Blue. And anyways, I have, that was, what was that, 2007? 15 years ago or something? 14 years, something like that. Yeah. And like now we're chatting, and I'm so stoked to chat, coming so far. And then so in prep for our convo, I went to your site. We found watermelon, which I loved. I mean, the picture of, I want to share it, but like, I know it wasn't you in the picture, but I see your humor in the picture. Like, I see your humor in the picture there. I see your humor, obviously, in the doorman, but that's like the whole thing. But like I see your humor in the commercial made with Mark Ronson, where with Bose, and then cut to like he's on the bike and there's a guy on the bike doing that thing. I'm like, fuck, that feel like that's Wayne Price right there. Like, your humor in me. I don't know if that's true.
No, it's totally. I scripted that. And you know what's really funny? Do you know who that guy is on the bike? Did he jump out at you at all?
No, is that the guy that's Remy?
Yeah. And Rami, that was before he had his show. He basically, like, he's a friend through another, like, I'm in like different circles, and it was in this group of people, and without going deep into what that group is, he's part of it, and he's someone that we just immediately hit it off. We were like fun friends, but he was just doing stand-up comedy at the time, and he had been pitching a show. But like, I was doing this video with Mark Ronson. He was in LA, and I just was like, hey, I have this little funny role for like a guy riding an exercise bike next to Mark Ronson, who's like just like listening to that song that everyone's listening to and just belting it out. And he's like, he's like, let's do it. And he just showed up, like, yeah, he was SAG. I had to get him a SAG waiver, but whatever. It was like, he had, like, no one really knew who he was then, and it's funny that, like, now he's like big time. Yeah.
Right. What I want to thread together is you're talking about creating, you said about the host energy and the space, right? And then I want to connect that to when I first met you. And I think, like, your energy is effusive, it's positive, it's fun, it's, like, obviously intelligent, but it's like the energy is there. You want to bask in it. And it was true in 2007. And obviously it was true last week when you did it. And I think, like, energy,
right.
It's like,
right.
There's a chef here in town who, like, he just told me he lost his mojo. And when I went to eat at his restaurant, like, I could feel it. Like, I could feel that in his food. He lost the mojo. And it just hit me. It's like, it's not about the thing. It's about the mojo. It's about the energy. And, like, you have an incredible group of friends. And in my research with you, like, I also, like, went back to the old emails you sent to, like, catch people up. Like, I went that far back, like 2017, 2019, 2021. You're just, these ideas. And there's a common thread. You're always offering value to your friends. So, like, you update them on your own thing. Like, but it's like, here's the thing I'm doing, and there's an opportunity for you to participate if you'd like, and check out these 5 things that my friends are doing who are all eclectic in different ranges. Value. It's like in going back in your stuff, I was like, and I think it comes down to, I don't know, but I'm tripping on the fact that it comes down to, like, energy and your energy, and out of that energy comes creation, and through an architecture of what your values are, and what I see as your values are, like, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying this is my reflection, is, like, community, music, and storytelling. When I say that, like, what comes up for you? Like, and the fundamental question on that is, like, what have you had to become good at?
Well, first of all, like, it's always great to hear somebody reflect back. Like, you just go through the steps in life. You not like sleepwalking. I'm not sleepwalking. Some people are. But perspective for your own self is often, missing. So, you just reminded me I haven't sent one of those catch-up emails. And it's funny, I keep coming back in my head. I'm like, oh, I need to. I even set reminders, like because there's so many things that I'm proud of or things I'm working on that I do want to share. And I'm not crazy about social media. Like, I mean, I love podcasts. I really do. I listen to podcasts a lot. This is awesome. But because the context, I mean, like, with a podcast, you can literally feel how a conversation evolved. You get the full context.
Yeah.
That's important. Social media, I feel like everyone tries to, like, push it down or make it into this pretty package, and it feels authentic. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But those emails, I've always gotten really good responses from people. Not that I do it for the responses. I do it because it's the most effective way to communicate what I'm up to. And also, like you said, something it is very important to me. It's like, if I'm taking a platform for myself and saying, here's a bunch of things about me, I also want to share that with people that I think are, like, I want it, because I'm like, while I have your attention, here's things that I think, like, I'm excited about that come from people in my world. I want you to be excited about it too, if you give it a chance. So it's a good reminder. I'm going to do another one soon, so thank you. Okay, and then to your question, I don't know if you read. I may have written that in a bio somewhere, because you basically nailed the things. If not, you're just incredibly intuitive.
No, I didn't. Well, I didn't see that on Room Tone. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah. I don't know. I feel like I may have written it somewhere, but regardless, like, yeah, those are the things, and they're intertwined. Community, every story that I end up getting excited about or diving into is usually, without being conscious about it, is about a community. And music, my first foray into music, really, when I was young, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan when I was a little kid, right? Everybody was. It wasn't like there was, like, a specific Michael Jackson community, but, like, I didn't know that. I just was nuts about him, and it just felt like, if you got that red leather jacket that he wore back in the day, or wore a white glove, and right, did the moonwalk. Like just people just like flipped. It was like, you talk about energy, like just people always, there was like, there's still probably never been anything like Michael Jackson. I don't think so,
Yeah.
And so like, and then I went to my first concert was at Madison Square Garden. It was Michael Jackson, 84.
That was your first concert ever? How old were you?
Ever. 8 years old.
And you went, and tell me, what, you went with who?
My mom. So I had sticker albums when I was a kid. Like, I was like mostly filled with images of Michael Jackson. And yeah, it was just crazy. I used to like make videos at home of me doing the moonwalk. And like, he was, I mean, like you talk about, I see it now through the lens of my own kids, but they're so affected by like pop culture and what's out there. And there was nothing like him. He was the king of pop for a reason. Like it was just everywhere. And he was so entertaining and his music was so just, it just got you. So yeah, I went to Madison Square Garden. I remember just like the feeling. I don't think I'd ever been to the Garden before. Oh, by the way, like storytelling. I might meander a little bit, so bring me back home.
There we go.
It's actually kind of genius. The weave is like, I haven't thought about that. And I was like, yeah, it is. It's like, I know what you're asking me. Let's go for a little journey and I'll get you back there.
Like, yeah, you mean the weave? I love how Trump calls it the weave.
So anyway, I go to Madison Square Garden. I'm blown away. I mean, I'm just like, I just remember like as a, just so about energy. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason why live music got me immediately. It was like, I was got by Michael Jackson, his aura, his moves, the whole thing. But going to see him in concert and stepping into that arena of like, whatever, 40,000 people, sucked into the energy. And it was like, and we had nosebleeds. My mom, I think we were like in the 400s. Like I remember looking, you could hardly even see. I mean, the big screen technology in 84 was not what it was today. Like it was definitely like you could see stuff, but it didn't matter. I just was like, whoa. Okay. So I was 8 when I went to that show and I was like, it wasn't like I was 8, but I wasn't like, I need to go to another concert right away. I just remember feeling like that was awesome to see Michael Jackson. And I don't know what just happened. Cut to probably around 14 or 15. And my uncle, so this is funny. My mom took me to my first concert. My mom's brother, my uncle Alan, took me to my second concert. You want to guess what that second concert was, Topaz?
Rolling Stones?
No, close.
Michael Jackson, obviously.
No, I only see Michael Jackson once.
No? Bruce Springsteen.
No, okay, you're all definitely. It is an icon.
311.
311. No, I'll get back to 311 in a second, though.
Bob Dylan.
The closest you've come yet, but only because the band covers Bob Dylan famously. Think icon, Community, Haight-Ashbury.
Grateful Dead. Boom. That was your second concert?
So I went from Michael Jackson to the Grateful Dead. And mind you, in between Michael Jackson and the Grateful Dead, what I was listening to, what like my friends were listening to, what I was really jazzed by was like the Beastie Boys, Run DMC, so my music lexicon was like, I was moving to like that early hip hop, but I was really still into the pop. I had not gotten into. My parents listened to. We had records at home, so they listened to Elton John and Neil Diamond. Occasionally, like it was like some folk art, like Cat Stevens. So I had that in my mind. But when I went to see so now it's like talking about. I'm connecting this all to community. Okay, so the Michael Jackson community was worldwide, massive. Okay,
right.
My uncle takes us to drive into Nassau Coliseum on Long Island to the show. And I just remember, and I was like playing, I was starting to listen to hip hop, and I was a lacrosse player, and I had like on like one of those like curved hats. And I was just like a little like athletic punk Long Island kid driving into Nassau Coliseum's parking lot for the Grateful Dead. And have you ever been to a Dead show?
No, I have not. But I have a lot of friends in college who love them. So, but I've not been. Fish shows, yes.
Okay, so Fish, there's definitely crossover. The entire parking lot, just like it would be like tailgating before a football game, turns into, like for the Dead, it turns into a time warp. You have it looks like we drove into 1969. Just see VW bugs and, buses and, just setups and people cooking veggie burritos and selling charms and tie-dyed shirts and people spinning in the parking lot and music playing everywhere. And I was like, what is this? And then we walk into the show, like we're going through all this. And I'm just like, my eyes are just like blown up. No drugs. I was 14. I mean, my uncle was clean. He was sober at the time. We walk in. And then the hallway. So I was a big Islanders fan. New York Islanders ice hockey, which is where the Islanders play. So Nassau Coliseum to me was a place that we would go to watch hockey games. And like that was religion on Long Island at that time. So the same place that I'd gone with my parents to see hockey games, the hallways, which had, by the way, the images of the Islanders winning the Stanley Cup, all the stuff that I was really excited about and knew, was just these people were spinning dresses. It was like a slow motion shot to me. Honestly, imagine 14 years old, walking through, just seeing hands in the air, young kids with moms, like just the patchouli smell, and you could hear now the music because it's like, like when there's a separation from like the hallway, which wraps around the arena, to like the arena where the doors open and you walk in, you could start to see like the show, but like it's kind of muffled because, the doors are closing. So it's just like every level from outside where you don't know exactly what's happening to like the first rung of like, whoa. And then the doors open and I just see the light show and just the whole place. You talk about energy. I mean, everyone is connected to the music.
Wow.
Just like that there's a show and there's no like I'd seen Michael Jackson and Michael Jackson was amazing, but he is spectacle. He is dance, like robots on stage and other dancers. And this was 5 or 6 guys just in their own spot playing with beautiful lights and like things around them, but everyone is just in it. So I then, I became hooked on the Grateful Dead, like immediately. I was like, this is amazing. I knew a couple of songs, but then talk about Community. People at that point would trade cassette tapes because they allowed the Dead. Now, this was really smart of them. They allowed people to come in and professionally record their shows. They had a whole section called the taper section, and Fish does the same thing. And it was free. You just had to like when you bought your ticket, you'd have to ask for a taper section, and then the people who would tape would make copies of them. Now, it wasn't supposed to be for commerce. It was supposed to be for you, but people. There was a store near me called Prime Cuts in Rockville Center, Long Island, where we would go the day after a show, and there was a guy in the back, like on a duplicating, like cassette tape machine, just like it was like I remember having to wait because like there wasn't enough tapes and they were still recording. I mean, this is before like you could literally just share a file, this is 93, something like that. But so now I'm just like, this was like, there was nothing like I just wanted to explore the community. I was part of it, right?
Yeah. Way before.
Yeah. And then I'll just do one more cut too, so that you understand the like breadth of like my understanding of music and community. Probably, let's see, 10 years after that? It's 14. No, less than that. It's like 8 or 9 years after that. Right after college, I start to work for this internet company in New York called Music Vision. And it was so random how that happened, but because I went to school for filmmaking and I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I got recruited by a friend who was in a band whose band I hired to play at a party in college. And he's like, you got to come check out what I'm doing. He had this like loft on like 11th Street between B and C, and it felt like camp. There was just like these young guys and they're all working there and they're creating this internet thing. It ends up being the largest network.
What year is that?
Of music website. 99. And so it's called Music Vision, and they're building the largest network of music websites specifically with the purpose of advertising. They figured like we could create a network and then package different websites in that network for advertisers. And it was just about like my role was, I was like, I didn't know anything about the internet at that point. I was like, he's like, don't worry, you're great with people, music. Just call up people who have artists' websites or music websites, just find them and just ask them to be a part. It's a win-win. Like, we'll make them money, they'll make us money, blah, blah, blah. So I was doing that. And then we decided to start an official, like top tier, like real major artists managing their site, but we didn't have any real major artists. So the guys that I were working with were big fans of the band Widespread Panic. So and they were friends with the label manager from Capricorn Records who managed Widespread Panic. So this woman, Wendy, I'll never forget, she comes down to the office and she's meeting with the guys, and the guys are like, yeah, we just need to get one major artist so that we can prove we can do this, and then we'll get all the other major artists. And Wendy was like, guys, I know you love Widespread Panic, and I know it's really important to you, but they're not a major artist. They're like no, you might get a couple other jam bands. She's like, we manage another band on our label that is blowing up. They're a major artist. They're called 311. And when she said 311 out loud, my cousin and I were like, listen, we used to like listen. He had a place on like 2nd and 9th right by St. Mark's. And we used to like listen to music every night. He showed me like 311 music and I just loved it. I was like, this is awesome, you know? So like, I just, the energy of it, I can feel it. And so I just jumped up. I was like, I love 311. Yeah. And so the guys I worked with were like, you know 311? And she's like, yeah, I'm in town right now because they're playing at Irving Plaza tonight. She rounded up the team. 311 is playing, and they have songs where they go jump up and down because that's a 3, and like literally everyone's jumping, and like you could feel the place moving. Yeah. And so like the guys I worked with just looked at me because I'm jumping too, and they're like, all right. So not only did Music Vision at that time sign 311 because we met with them after, and their managers were cool. Their managers are still some of my closest friends. Adam and Peter Raspler, like we're actually in a fantasy football league together for years, and they just like they were cool. They were great to be first movers. And the guys I was working with, they're older than me. They started the company. They assigned me because they saw how much of a fan I was. They saw that the managers connected. So I managed the first official artist site for Music Vision, which was 311. And so long story short, from 311, we ended up, they were the first, but because we were now working with a notable band,
311,
we ended up managing the websites, I kid you not, Mariah Carey, Christina Aguilera, NSYNC, Outkast, pretty much any like top of tier artist from like 2000.
Wow. This 2000s, 2001, 2002, at the birth of the internet, like the beginning of it coming out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I went to the first internet radio conference. We owned musicdownloads.com, not with a Z, like musicdownloads.com. And I got invited to like the first, where the Napster guys were talking about how internet radio is going to put terrestrial radio out of business. And like, people were just scoffing at them, you know, like it's crazy. Like the stuff like that are in my like history.
I know. I remember you and I sitting at Cafe Chitan. I think it was 2011, 2010. And we're just looking at each other, two filmmakers in New York, like doing our thing. And we looked at each other. We said, man, like if we're serious about this, like we got to go into digital. Like, we got to go. That was even 2011. It was like, and I remember going, wow, but it's so overwhelming. Like, how do we even?
Yeah. But you really took it, though. Like, because what you've created, like, you really own a platform inside the digital space. Like, I've created a lot of content for the digital space, but don't own, like, my own IP. Like, that's really, you made a move right at the great time to do that. Super smart.
I just remember thinking, I don't want to start from scratch every time. And like you make a successful film and then, or some asset, then you could charge more for your time the next time you make the asset, but it doesn't like snowball and create inertia.
Yeah,
and I was like, I need to create inertia that like builds on itself, because otherwise this is exhausting and I'm going to burn out and I'm not going to build anything like sustainable for me. You know, that was like, but it was that day in Chitan when I looked and like, it was a beautiful self-reflection, because it was like we both were saying it, and yet I know I wasn't doing anything about it, and yet we both knew it was there. And it was like, you know it's there. You're not going to go there because you can't figure it out. Like, figure it out, man. You got to go. And it took me 3 years, but yeah.
Was that moment that we met up at Chitan, was that after I serendipitously ran into you filming at the 12-12-12 concert? And then we decided to meet up, or was that before that?
Oh man, the 12-12 concert. I don't even remember meeting it. Were you filming the 12-12-12 too? We were both filming that, right?
Yeah, totally separately, like so randomly. Like I just remember, I don't know. I remember being like, we got to catch up because you were both, that was just I mean, to this day, I mean, you talk about legends, every single one of them in the fucking room.
Do you know what's funny? It's like when I remember back in my years in New York, because I've been living in Mexico the last 5 years, and now I'm even further down in Uruguay, it's almost like another character. It's almost like I pull a character out of a book and I'm reading it, and it's my life, but it feels like I'm reading a character in a book.
Oh my gosh.
Because it just, different language, different world, different speed.
It's so...
Do you feel that way, that you're now in the...
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny. There are elements of like what you just talked about, like the life that is like another world, like another character, like a book on the shelf that you could pull out and be like, oh yeah, I remember that story. I there's a lot of my life that feels like that. Yet, I have very clear, like it's like almost like you pulled off the book off the shelf and then you could still jump into the book. From time to time, it's like a book that has it's like jump in, like Alice in Wonderland, go into the looking glass. Because, so for instance, like I'm sure you don't get to do this that much because you live pretty far away now. But I go to New York 3 or 4 times a year because my biggest client, like I love telling stories. Occasionally, I have the good fortune of being able to dream up an idea of my own and do it, whether I get it funded or however. But, to make the wheels turn, I work for other people. And my biggest client now, which happened over the last 5 years, is Northwell Health, the largest employer in New York State. And they love working with me, and I get to tell really interesting, beautiful stories of real people who work inside their ecosystem. And, it's a nice balance. Like, I don't feel dirty, like I'm working for the man. Like, they really empower me to do my type of work, but for them. And so my long story short, I get to jump into the New York vibe, energy.
So, what's interesting, like because you won the Emmy in 2021 for a piece you did with them, right? About first responders during COVID. And I remember in COVID, I was in Guadalajara. My son was just being born. Talk about that. I think Leo, for you, was already 1 or 2 at that time. But for my son was just being born, literally like the week of the pandemic was, the week. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, someone's got to tell the story. Someone's got to go and film this in New York right now, right here, right now. And then a few months later, at some point, I see you doing it. And I was not surprised. I was like, of course he's there. He's still...
Hold on. Can I just... I have my wife's showing me her cute outfit. It's Topaz. Remember Topaz? Yes, Michelle. She just wanted to come show me her.
Hey, Michelle.
You can't hear him because she's saying hi. We're doing a little podcast.
We're doing a live podcast.
So like you talk about the like,
oh my God,
difference of worlds. I mean, I have 3 boys with beautiful, beautiful wife. It's like the David Byrne song. This is not my beautiful wife. This is not my beautiful house. How did I get here? Yeah. And the days go by. Yeah. It's like, okay, so gosh, I'm gonna weave, man. I'm gonna bring it back home.
This is how did I end up here? So how did you get here?
That's a great question. So
you're in a huge weave. But like community, energy, but like what did you have to get at? What did you have to get good at to get to where you are now? And did you always know you were going to get here?
I got here, the TLDR, and then I'll go deeper, is by not following the script. Basically, like I went, it was hard for my parents in the sense of like, they followed the script in life. The script is, you do well in high school, you get into a great college, you get a great job, you start the family, you do the things, right? I did just well enough in high school to get into the basement of the Ivy Leagues, Cornell. And I only applied there because my mom and my grandpa went there. I wanted to go to film school, of course. I knew early on I wanted to, so I applied to NYU and SC and UCLA and Northwestern and, and I got into all of them except for USC. And I cried when I had to accept my Cornell. He's like, who cries? You got into like that. I was like, I did.
You took that because your mom and your they told you got to go to where we went.
I was indoctrinated from an early age. When I talk about that sticker album with Michael Jackson, what I didn't tell you is that there was equally as many Cornell flag stickers and Big Red. And like my mom was like sticking them in there, just trying to get them in my head, from early, and I think there's a part of me that's always rebelled against that. Like I went, but even though I went, I was like one of like a handful of Cornell students that was focusing on film. And by the way, had one of the best film educations I think I could possibly get because it wasn't so rigid. And they had all the gear. They had someone who left an endowment. At the time, I got to learn Avid and, the Media 100s. And then it was like right at the time where we were transitioning from film to digital. So I cut my first film on 16 millimeter reversal. I did those things. I followed the script, but even while I was following the script, I was learning how to not follow it at the same time. Like I was like Cornell. My mom wanted me to go there. I got in, but yet I'm studying film and I was the weird film kid. And yet, so half my friends that I knew from like Long Island wanted to do the Greek system. And I kind of did. And I applied to get into a fraternity and I made fun of it the whole way. I was such a pain in the ass to everybody that my pledge name was Hemorrhoid. And then I just finally was like, fuck it. I deactivated. I left college my senior year. Like I just took off an entire semester to do like a semester abroad kind of, but I did it in New York City. And I did an internship at MTV and at this like post-production house. I just was like, I learned then to find my own path. And I basically like, I've always been like, that sounds fun. That sounds interesting. I don't know a lot about that, but somebody thinks I could be good at it. What if I try it? So I did. And I was very good at it. And I probably would have stayed in that realm if it wasn't for being in New York City on 9/11, and seeing and feeling just everything that was going on and realizing life's too short. And so I just said, fuck this. I really just always wanted to be a filmmaker. I was with a girlfriend at the time. We got engaged. We moved to Amsterdam.
Well, hold on. But so let's go back. That's interesting. So you're at Music Vision. You left Cornell. You're there. You didn't finish it, or maybe did you go back and finish it, or you just left?
I went back and finished it. I had to like hustle to like get like one extra credit.
Right. Okay, so then you're in New York, and then 9/11 happens?
Yeah. I'm in New York working for Music Vision. It went from being like a really tight-knit group of people that were excited by what we were doing, feeling hopeful about the future, actually being profitable. Like the company was making money. And then it was at the time with that first internet boom where everyone was trying to go IPO. So it got into the founders' heads like, we need to get valuation and get investors and do that. And so they did. But like I watched, I wasn't involved in that. It was all behind the scenes. But I watched this like kind of small family structure that we had start to like, it was like they were bringing in these sales guys and opening up offices, like bigger offices, and they were bringing in more people. And no one really knew when they come in exactly what they were doing. And I was kind of like, it was like all the people who were there from the beginning were like training the new people, but they didn't, no one really knew. It was all everyone was like weaving bullshit. And then we were learning that the new people were getting paid more than us. And it was this like mutiny was kind of happening, and so it went from like a great feeling to an icky feeling. And so when you have that icky feeling, you start to get in your head by like, is this really what I want to be doing?
Right.
Do I want to be? So yes. And then 9/11 happened and it just solidified. I was like, okay, the icky feeling I've been living with now, like life's too short.
Yeah. But then 9/11 happened.
At the time I was living with a girlfriend on like 22nd and 2nd. Yeah.
But that must have been, we live in the East Village?
Never, ever forget all the details of that day. I woke up, turned on New York 1. It was like we lived in an apartment that had one window that you could see out, and it actually happened to look downtown. It's like a smaller apartment. But I would turn on New York 1. Actually, we were on our way to the airport. We were supposed to go to Australia that day. We had this big trip planned, my girlfriend and I. And my dad was on his way to drive into the city from Long Island to pick us up and take us to JFK. It's my dad. He loves spending time with us, and it was really sweet of him. And we turn on New York 1, and we're getting ready, and it's like hear them talking, and like, I don't know what it looks like. A small plane may have hit the building, and we're like, her, like, turn around, and you just on the TV, you see the image of like one of the towers with this big smoke just billowing out of the top, and we're just like, whoa, what the fuck, like that. It does not. I don't. What is that's crazy just to see one of the twin towers like with that big damage and then so I just remember very clearly as I'm watching it in that moment, and I call my girlfriend in and like, come and check this out, and she's like, whoa, and then I just remember saying, oh, there's a helicopter coming in to like get a closer look, or maybe to like drop water on it. That wasn't a helicopter. That was the second plane. I literally saw the second plane on TV hit. And you could hear from outside the window. I'm on 22nd Street. This is, like I'm blocks away from downtown. Like not block, like it's,
oh my gosh,
it's still a long enough. But you could feel the energy of that hit from outside. And then you could hear all the shrieks from outside. I mean, I spent that day watching people walk uptown covered in white ash, doing what we can to help. Lost communication with my dad, hoping that he was fine. We finally realized he was. The only people, by the way, that I was able to communicate with were people abroad, or people who were like had internet elsewhere. So I was talking to my friend in Amsterdam, who had been trying to get me to move there. And he was like, what the fuck's everything okay? Like, everyone was just on that standby. So what that day was like. It's crazy.
But you moved to Amsterdam together.
We moved to Amsterdam together. I spent pretty much all the money that I had made, and I was doing well. And by the way, before I left Music Vision, I told my boss, and he said to me, I'll never forget this. He goes, what will it take for you to stay? And I just was like, I really just, I feel like I'm pretty confident in this decision. He's like, all right. He's like, just give me a number. What will it take for you to stay? And at the time, I probably was making like $45,000 a year. It wasn't like, but I was 21, and it was like pretty decent. Like I was able to live in New York City at that time, like pretty decently. So I was like, I don't know, like double what I'm making now. And he didn't flinch. He just kind of like looked at me, goes, all right, let me have a chat with Tom. I think his name was the CFO. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I left and come back into work the next day, and calls me in, and he just calls me at his office, and he goes, you got it. It's like, got what? He's like, what you asked for. And now I'm like, oh, fuck, man. I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like, I'm now making more than my dad, like, well, more than my dad is making. But I already told my girlfriend that we're doing this. I had all these plans in motion. So I said, let me just have a conversation. He's like, seriously? He's like, you can't, like, he's like, I was like, yeah, seriously. He's like, all right.
Ready to Amsterdam.
I probably would have been on a much like better trajectory to like make a bunch of money in life. But I came back in and I told him, thank you, but I'm going to just do my original plan. And he was like, all right. It's like, I appreciate that. So I then ended up going to Amsterdam, spending not even a full year there, spent everything. And at that point, I was like, shit, I have to get a job. And I met this guy who ran a temp agency. I went from, having this like super high paying job, with a lot of respect, and which I said out to having this adventure in Amsterdam with a fiance who ended up coming back to New York before me to go to school at Columbia. She went to J school, and just drifting apart, like did her own life. And then we ended up separating. We went from being together all the time to never seeing each other.
You're so young too. You're so young. I mean,
so young. It was honestly, it's the best for both of us. It's the best thing that happened because we were just both not ready. It was like, again, it was the script. We felt we were supposed to be doing that.
Well, I see where music comes from. Michael Jackson, Grateful Dead, like listen, the DMC, Run DMC. So you listen to music as a young kid. Community, I hear you talking about Grateful Dead and like feeling that sense of like this connection, this group, and also with Michael Jackson, like that. But you always wanted to be a filmmaker, and you applied to NYU, USC, da-da-da-da. Where did that seed, where was that seed planted? From where did that sprout?
I was so enamored by storytelling and Hollywood movies when I was little, and so I was enamored to the point where it was like my dad had a camcorder. I started just like using it, like making my own movies. And then when I was in high school, they had I started the TV station because they had a video toaster, which was like an early version of Premiere, I guess. Like, very, very rudimentary, but yet it was able to show you like transitions to wipe screens and all that. So I just, to me, it was like, I have to be able to do that. And I started the school TV station, and, we would make little clips. I got, and I wasn't believe it or not, Topaz, I was not like super popular in high school. I was kind of awkward, and, I didn't fit into one niche. Oh, this is a good thing, because this will bring me back to like the community thing. But I got elected to be student body president, but it was because I made a cool freaking video. Like, you're supposed to, like, the platform that where you get not like everybody has to make a video, and that was my thing. So I crushed it in high school. I crushed the video.
Can we double click on that? Could you go back to the first time you shared that video and realized it worked and it was really good? Do you remember that?
It's kind of hard, high school, such a long time ago. But I do feel like I can remember, because I remember when I was editing it, and I hadn't really edited something that was like a short film before. Like I had and I remember like getting excited by, like, I used unsolved mysteries there was like unsolved mysteries in the high school. I used it as like a narrative and as a theme. But I remember feeling as it was coming together, like it was like that excitement of like, yeah, this is working, like for me. So it was like I was gratified that it was feeling good to me. And then to get the validation in showing it like to the whole school again, like I was going up against one kid who was way more popular than me. So like, it was, yeah, I that has to have been something that gave me a lot of encouragement at the time.
Mm-hmm. Are you the oldest or the youngest? Because you have a brother, right?
I have two brothers. I'm the oldest. Yeah. Yeah.
How did your parents react when you went class president or school president, right?
My parents have always been so supportive and so proud. Like, it's the thing is like, it's like, oh, this is amazing. But like it's not like I can trust their opinion. Like, they just love me. You know what I mean? Like, and I gotta give them credit. Like, I had a premiere of The Doorman. We did it at, Village East Cinemas, and they were just, they saw like we had photographers and a red carpet, and they just like for them, it was like I just won the Academy Award. It was just there is this pride,
mm-hmm.
Like my son, like he's in film, he's a director, like it's, and they tell all their friends, and it's funny, like you get the Long Island moms who call you up or like send you a message like, don't forget me when, or like, can you give me a small role.
I had that memory because I think you were one of my first friends in our cohort who, there's a time where we're all making our films coming out and going to Tribeca and here. And then I remember being in Chelsea in New York, walking down into the West Village. I think I was on 17th, 18th, and 7th and 8th Avenue, somewhere there. I remember it. Or maybe it was Penn Station, but it was like I remember a bus coming by and the whole side panel said The Doorman. And that was like the first.
Topaz, can I double click on that one for a sec?
Yeah, double click.
Talk about a movie that destroyed critically. Like we got, I think like it did so poorly in the box office, but it did even worse through reviews. Like I think on Rotten Tomatoes we got like a 16 or 17%. I mean, like it was almost. It was so fun. Like, I mean, like this was a movie that was supposed to be a short film that one of the producers whispered in our ears, like, we got to extend this because he guessed that, would have more value.
But it was funny. So it was funny, though.
Took a joke and just stretched it. But here's the thing now. So the movie comes out. We get it into one theater in New York City. And we end up having, like you just said, like the sides of buses, bus stop displays and all that. Now, how did that happen? Why did that happen? Why would that happen for a movie that's playing in one theater, independent? Like why? I'll tell you why. Another community that I had been very involved in was summer camp. Growing up, Long Island, upper middle class, Jewish, all my friends went to summer camp. And I never was like into summer camp. My parents, my mom sent me to the one that she went to up in the Adirondacks, upstate New York. I was homesick. I wasn't as good at it's summer camp. You got to be good at sports. I wasn't so great at sports when I was young. Much better now, actually. So it's good. These interruptions are good because so So anyway, I never was really into summer camp. And then I end up going, it's my third try at summer camp. It was this camp in Pennsylvania. When it comes to community, I've always been someone that's I wasn't just drinking the Kool-Aid. And that really offends people in community if you don't drink their Kool-Aid. So like I talk about like being in a fraternity, pledge hemorrhoid, I would get out of it. Summer camp, I tried 3 before I found the one that I loved. And when I found the one I loved, and I ended up being a counselor there for many years, that was probably the most Kool-Aid I've ever drunk. Like I was in that community. But then I hit a point where I also kind of got a little critical or pushed back on some things. And then I lost some friends and, but this friend group though, from that community was so tight.
Right.
And one of my friends ends up becoming a pretty powerful executive in advertising for a company that literally focuses on transportation displays. So my friend Gary, who's working at this big company, he's like, hey guys, we have inventory on buses. And he showed us like this whole thing. He's like, if it's not sold, it's just inventory that we have. We could do something. Like you just get we'll give you the dimensions, create stuff. And we paid basically just his cost. People were seeing like ads for this movie everywhere, and there's only one theater. And the saddest part about this, Topaz, despite all of that, like I have more people that have seen the bus stops and the buses than that actually saw the movie. But that was the power. Again, that's a community thing. Like that happened because someone in my community wanted to give us value for it, and we were able to do that. Otherwise, it would have been the dumbest thing. And we made very dumb moves even after that. Like to this day, you can't find the original Doorman on any streaming platform because it was just so poorly handled.
So like we could bring that thread to the present because you're talking about being hemorrhoid and questioning this, not drinking the Kool-Aid. And then most you ever drink the Kool-Aid. And then obviously you mentioned to me in the forum, you're talking about since 2016, you've been on this really interesting journey about exploring yourself and such when you like confronted a family member and said, about political views, and that's taking you on. And so like, you could argue now, or one could argue now that everyone's drinking some kind of Kool-Aid. Like whatever, it's like you're drinking the red Kool-Aid, the blue Kool-Aid, it's all a conspiracy Kool-Aid, it's all the same Kool-Aid, whatever it is, everyone's drinking Kool-Aid. Regardless of whatever information you're seeing, it is affecting your narrative, whether it's misinformation or not, or malinformation. Where are you at now with that journey since 2016? And, Trump, and I've heard stories where within family members, half the family is ecstatic and the other family is scared and in trauma. And what's ironic is one friend told me a story that her partner went to the bathroom and was having an anxiety attack because they were at a wedding of all the cousins and they had a Trump flag and they were so excited. And a cousin came up to her and said, where's your partner? Well, she's having an anxiety attack because of this. And she goes, well, now you know how we've been feeling for the last 4 years. So they've been feeling the anxiety attack of when Biden has been in, and it's flipped, and it's like two sides of the same coin, heads or tails. Where are you at in that journey now?
I think the question that everyone needs to ask themselves, which I've been asking myself, is how do I know I'm right?
How do you know that you're outside the matrix and not just another form of a matrix?
It's hard because it's not a good feeling to ever feel like what you feel, which then can translate into what you believe. And then I'll even extrapolate that, what I know. And what I feel is that when in 2016, I wasn't asking myself, how do I know what I know is right? I just knew it was right. And I think I still have many people in my life that project knowing I'm right. And my course since 2016 has been very humbling. And again, like my whole history of questioning communities that I've been involved with, which is just, again, I think it was just an innate thing. I didn't decide to. When something would feel off or I felt like I'm not sure about this, or my type of pushback was often met with, people either getting quiet with me or just silently pushing me away, and then me having that, like, what the fuck did I do? So I already had that, but here I am in 2016, and my entire life being brought up the way I told you, like, from a family that was very, would vote Democrat. I knew liberal minded, I ended up being involved in groups that were, I literally would sit in rooms with some of the founders of the Women's March and Black Lives Matter and, act super activist types and feel like, how could I help more from and I hated to feel that way, but I was guilty that I was white and privileged and I wanted to give more. I felt like the country was turning its back in many ways on these people. And I still do to many ways. Like that hasn't changed. What's changed is that I see, you talk about the Matrix and, what color Kool-Aid, what color pill you took or whatever. In challenging myself and recognizing that different than friends of mine who have just cut off family members that they disagreed with or just encouraged me to as well.
They encouraged you to cut them off.
I had, so like the thing that happened, I'll call it the inciting moment, in my journey was, it might have actually been the day before the election in 2016. My wife's brother, kindness of his heart, giving the two of us a ride to the airport. And we're on our way to, and here's another community, which I haven't brought up yet, but very powerful in my life, hugely powerful. I wouldn't have met my wife if it wasn't for this community. And I'm on my way to Summit at Sea 2016. It's funny. It's talking about like, world changers and people who want to make impact going to get on a cruise ship, which is one of the most negative impact things you can possibly get on. But yeah, we're on our way flying to Miami to get on a cruise ship with a bunch of like doers and dreamers and whatever you want to look at it as. And we all knew that the election, it was just a line that the cruise was leaving the day after the election, but many people were getting on the boat the night before, which was the election night. Yeah. So I'm being dropped off by my wife's brother, and we're loosely talking about the election, and it's starting to get the conversation's getting a little bit like, because my wife's brother is he spends a lot of time on the internet, a lot of time like reading stuff, and it's becoming clear that he is way more, he's a musician from the Bay Area. I just assumed, and I knew a bunch of his friends, I just assumed that he was more like liberal minded. And I was like becoming very clear that I was wrong, that's not the case. And not only that, like he's kind of starting to let on without saying straight up that he's going to vote for Trump. And as we're pulling up to the airport, I was like, don't be a fucking idiot, man. Like, don't vote for that guy. And he just me this look, and my wife gave me this look like, did you just say that to him? Just calling him out after all, because he was speaking passionately about certain things, and I just immediately was like, bro, I'm sorry, that was uncalled for, I shouldn't have said it. But I was like, but like the sentiment was obviously real, and we went, and then we all know what happened. I mean, for the context of where I was with what I assumed to be, because most of the people who came to Summit events at that time were from the big cities. They were from LA and New York and San Francisco. And, there was a smattering of people from different places. But for the most part, the vibe and the energy was, these are your progressive people. And they were showing on a big screen in this atrium on the cruise, like the results. And you could just feel the energy go from like, because all the polls were like, Hillary's got it, to pin drop. And then, like, you talk about, like, we're on a cruise ship now, and it's, like, all this, like, big part. It was, like, it was, like, everyone woke up with the worst hangover. Right. Everyone was just dragging their feet. Like, you talk, like that was it. The world, like, and I was one of them. I was, like, convinced, like, our world was, like, what is happening? Like, how did this guy, the amount of pejoratives I could have used for him at that moment, it was just, it was just, and so I was part of this community now that started to like, they're all doers, and they were like, all these sessions were forming, like, how can we save democracy? And you're talking like, there's some major Hollywood producers involved and business. It was like, there were some notable people in these rooms leading these conversations. So that's how 2016, that election started. And I remember like, somebody in one of the sessions raised this idea of like describe the person, and it was like, there's a guy, he's driving. So imagine there's this guy and he's driving a pickup truck, and he's got an American flag on the back, and he steps out of the truck, and you see he's an amputee, and his son gets out, and his son's special needs. And it was like, you could just see like the people, the way that they were describing him first, it was like, oh, I know exactly what box to put him in. And then it was like, oh, I kind of feel bad for him, or I could recognize it. And I just remember just like this, it was somebody I think it was like a Black woman who even brought it up.
Right.
And it was like a very sensitive time. And she didn't say overtly like, don't be so quick to judge, but that was the sentiment. It was like, you just don't know anybody's full story, you know, because there was so much just judge. I mean, the amount of judgment that was floating around. It's so easy. It's like road rage. It's so easy when you're in your car to everybody else is an asshole when you're in your car, you know, everybody else is wrong.
Right.
And it felt on the boat that there was a lot of like, it was funny. We are on this boat. We are the sensible ones.
Right.
And all these other people have lost the thread, have lost their minds. They're crazy. They're uneducated. They're this, they're that. And while there was many conversations that I was a part of that still had that sentiment after, I held on to this image of like this person that like was way more three-dimensional to me. And then I thought about my wife's brother, and then her family, who I've known has always voted conservative. And I'm like, because I'm listening to people just talk about Trump voters and what they are. And I'm like, I know that this is not, I know my family, they're great people. Like, and so what ended up happening, so I left there with like, I was still very much like, I can't believe Trump's in office. I can't believe this is happening. But I need to not like, I need to really think deeper, like when I'm approaching these conversations, which I knew are going to come up. Then somebody in my community as well, one of the founders of Summit actually, was on the board of a group called Beyond Conflict. They did this report that's really eye-opening called the Polarization Report. And it basically dove into meta-perceptions. Meta-perceptions aren't like, what do I as a liberal think about you as a conservative? And giving examples that would like give a number to it. It was more of, what if me as a liberal think that you as a Republican thinks about me? So this is where like, and I realized when I read this, that that's exactly what was going on, both on the cruise with Summit and with my wife's brother, where he was treating me based on what his perception is of what he felt that I thought about him, instead of asking me the questions, which is what was going on en masse in the country. And when I saw this report, what it did, it brilliantly did this. It showed the position overlap, because they took an issue like immigration, and they said, you know, you're left wing. So on a scale of 0 to 100, with 0 being borders, you think borders should be completely open, to 100 being completely closed. Where do you fall on that chart as a left wing person? I'm like, well, borders completely open doesn't make any sense. There needs to be checked. Maybe I'm like a 35. You know, okay. Where do you feel this guy who's a conservative would lay on that? Oh, they don't want anyone coming in 90, 95. You know, they ask a conservative, actual conservative, the same question. The conservative says, yeah, we need to have some restrictions, but it shouldn't be entirely closed. I'm probably like a 70, you know? And where do you feel that the liberals want everyone to come in? They're 5. So the meta perceptions, which is where we're mostly living because we're not engaging with each other, shows complete extremes. But the actual answers are way more in the middle. So they showed a position overlap, which meant that if we actually just took a moment to talk to each other about it, we'd realize we'd have stuff in common.
You get good at what you practice, and we're not practicing listening. Our media doesn't enable us to listen. It doesn't actually, the business model doesn't benefit from listening. It benefits from fear and fury, right?
Yes.
So we're not practicing listening. And what's essential is like, not the answers. The answers aren't essential. What's essential is sitting in the discomfort of the questions. And just like sitting, and like no one is like facilitating that. You know, but I do think things are going to shift, because I think we're going through so much pain that people are realizing that. And I think there's going to be a shift. That's just part of a painful process of like having enough pain to realize we need to like transform and understand each other in a better way. And I you know, that's what comes up for me from doing the work with Ann and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, sit in the discomfort of the questions. Like, ask a hard question with your brother or whatever. And like, for me, like, you said, like, you ask a question, it's like, how do I know what I know? Or you said a version of that. How do I know I'm right? Like a flip question that I usually ask with everyone, regardless of the position, is like, okay, great. What would you have to see to know that you're wrong? And if they say nothing, that's problematic. Because it's like, whatever it is, I believe in gravity. Cool. What would you have to see? Well, if someone flew without engine or machines and they could fly, I have to question gravity. Cool. You have to have something. If you could answer the question, what you'd have to see to know that you're wrong, then you're thinking of it a little bit more holistically and you're open to the possibility of being wrong. But if you're like nothing, then it's really difficult to have a conversation because you already shut down. Regardless of what you see, you're not going to see it. Yeah. Where are you at now? Because now we're 8 years later. Trump has just come back in and he's got a trifecta. I mean, if anything, he's come in strong. It's interesting. He's won across a majority of the groups, of the demographics. I think a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, which I'm not hearing many people talk about, or I haven't seen yet in the news sources, that I think a lot of doubt has come up post-COVID. Like, I think a lot of people have lost a lot of trust in institutions, at least part of the community, by the enforcement that was done with the COVID vaccines. And I think a lot of people were really questioning. And that's really led to distrust of the service and the media, which wasn't there in 2016, And that has moved a lot of people in the middle or on the spectrum of progressive, a little bit more to the center, a little more to the right. And even the right and the left has shifted. Like, it's not what it used to be. So I don't even think like, oh, he's always been a Republican. Hold on a sec. He's always been Democrat. Like, that has shifted. And so it's interesting to question, like, what are my values? Because the platforms are adjusting. And what do I have to see in order to know that I'm not correct? Like, I myself have become definitely a little bit more distrusting of the institutions, the media, by virtue of what I've seen or the feeds that I've been watching, if I should say.
We are two white guys having this conversation, and I know that I could never possibly understand what it's like to be an immigrant, like a full-on, like my great-grandparents were, but I'm not, a minority. Even this day with what's happening between Israel and Palestine, my friends with last name Goldstein have a hard time just like walking around, like there are things that just are visible to other people that I don't deal with, and I know that many people right now who feel threatened, like truly threatened, people who are transgender, like there's a lot of that stuff that there's the sensitivity level from them. I can understand and empathize with, but I can't feel the same way. And I never, no matter where I've come or what I cannot claim to feel. There's no way. Like I'm not none of those. I am from the outside looking in. Yeah, I have my own struggles in life, like everyone does, just in life. But I don't have some of this innate struggle that is not any of their. Well, I mean, if you've chosen to, change your gender, I mean, I guess there's an argument that you brought that on. But hey, if that's really what you feel, my politics is essentially like, as long as you're not messing with my ability to chase and have the life that I want. Whoa! I pointed at myself, and then there's like explosions going on around me. Maybe that's like the computer going, yeah, go on.
Yeah, look at it.
I've listened to people, and I know that there's a lot of wild anger, the same way there was in 2016, the way that I embodied it. And I'm not even saying that as like a defense, like, oh, I just think that's what's happened for me in questioning what I know is I zoomed out. I extended my frame. I haven't changed the core of who I am. I've allowed more space. I've brought it out wider, and I've seen a lot more, and I understand a lot more, I believe, than I did before. And as you alluded to, and even you actually just straight up said, the Democrats don't represent the Democrats that I knew growing up. To me, at least what it felt like, the Democrats were more on the like anti-establishment, questioning the government and trying to make progressive changes for things that were wrong. And the way I see it now is that's totally flipped. Like, to me, when in casting the net wider, I mean, honestly, even the way that I've never, before, when Donald Trump even came up, I never liked him. I remember when I was young, someone had a bar mitzvah theme that was essentially like a Donald Trump theme. And it was just disgusting. I've never been a fan of his. And then, especially in light of him leading the country at the time, and then some of the tone and the way he would, all of it just was like, it would just get under my skin. Mm-hmm. What I've come to realize now is that he came into power. He wanted to run because I think there's probably a huge part of it, like anybody who decides to run for president, it's ego, and I want to be the most powerful person in the world, and I'm sure that absolutely fits the Donald Trump persona that I've known. But I also truly feel now that he saw an establishment that was failing, like really, and not just like he saw, like, if you there are no, like, you could ask people on the left, do you think American education is working? And many of them will say no. I mean, the statistics are there, and they're not even almost like politicized. Like, America spends the most on any westernized nation per capita on education, and we are on the very bottom for results in testing on, like, just basics, reading, writing, math, and that's just one of many, like, that has changed, that has gone downhill. Food is a very big thing. Like, I don't think there's any other westernized countries that allow the ingredients into food that America does. Why? I mean, you have to stop at some point and be like, and then America has some of the worst problem with anti-immunity and chronic illness and obesity. And what do? We just going to prescribe Ozempic to 4-year-olds? Like this is, prescriptions are not a long-term solution. My brother, who is a public school teacher in Louisville, Kentucky, he was a lifer. He loved being a teacher. He still loves being a teacher, but recently told me, I don't see myself doing this for another 5 years. It's just exhaustion, just wearing out. Like, they're paying less, asking them to do more, everyone's upset. There's just like fighting over curriculum, and and then you add in now this other things about just how much protectionism there is in school for kids. Like, we don't allow kids. Talk about being uncomfortable.
What is it called? What's the program that you told me that you're doing? You're doing, it's not homeschooling, but it's like free school,
micro school.
Yeah, but now you have a micro school, which is a few families who have their kids in your backyard, right?
Yeah, we turned a warehouse into a school. We insulated it and really like set it up. It looks amazing. And there's 18 kids at most that go on any given day. But yeah, it's a handful. It's a real communities formed around this, and it's really beautiful, because really what we did was, we just looked at the curriculum that's out there, and we looked at like what skills kids really need for the work, like in the world today. I'll say one thing, like when you look at public schools, they were invented at a time that the Industrial Revolution was happening, and people were going to be trained to be factory workers. So if you look at it that way, everything makes sense. The school bell is the factory bell. The recess yard is like the recess yard. Like, when you hear the bell, you stop, move on to the next thing. Yeah. That's all meant for training you just subconsciously to learn how to work in a factory. Yes, there are still factories, but most people are not going through school to work in a factory. And yet
well, the future is going to have robots. The robots are going to... Now there's a different place for humanity. The impetus is on us to explore how we connect, and our differences, actually, not our sameness. Because the sameness comes from the nodes of AI. AI is ubiquitous learning. One node learns, everything learns. The whole system learns. So it all is the same. But we all learn differently. We see differently. In that space, that's like I think that's the space for us humans, is to really say, okay, now that we have machines and cognitive and AI can do things, now what's left for us is really explore the heart, to explore our differences, to explore how we connect, and to find the gold in that space. Machines and cognitive and AI can do things. Now what's left for us is really explore the heart, to explore our differences, to explore how we connect, and to find the gold in that space.
what made America great? We're a melting pot. There's never been another like experiment. Say the American experiment. Yeah, it was open up a space that brings so many different people together, welcomes them all.
You know, it's funny. I never felt American until 9/11. Until 9/11, and I was making that film then after called Americana. And I went to the memorial. When you go to the memorial, you see all the 1,100 people who died, more or less. And you realize they're from all over the world. They're from all over. They're from everywhere. And I was crying, and I realized, I was 20 at the time, 21. And I always felt like an outsider. Always, because my parents are immigrants, I always felt like an outsider. Never felt American. Always felt like I didn't belong, and I wasn't accepted, and I was a second class. I felt like that, even though I'm a white, heterosexual, cisgendered male. I felt outside. And then when I realized, oh my God, America is not a people, it's a subscription to certain values.
Yeah.
Right? To democracy, to, hey, you do what you do, I respect that, you respect what I do, and like, don't limit my ability to be me, and, to my pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That was a big shift for me on coming up. And I think, like, what are the spaces we create for our children now in lieu of the fact that the education system is not able to adapt fast enough for the world that's adapting so much faster? But it's true. And I think, like, I wonder if we went back to that first time we met in 2007, if you will, in New Blue. The music was happening, all the great stuff. And we looked at each other and said, can you believe that in 15 years we'll have kids and we'll be living on basically, farm or like out in, boonies? Would you imagine that?
I still can't believe it. I have 11 chickens. I go and take care of the chickens, man. Like I never, talking about a kid that grew up on Long Island, close to the city. My parents didn't have this pedigree at all. They laugh. They think it's the funniest thing. My wife thinks it's the funniest thing. Her parents think it's the funniest thing when they met me. But I'm embracing it because it's like, it's wild, and it gives me a lot of joy and frustration at times because I'm learning a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, I told my wife yesterday, she sent me pictures like of the kids, like just one point to this thing. So right next door to us, we have like literally a farm with horses and cattle, and our kids on every Wednesday, part of the school curriculum is they do something called horsemanship, and they climb over our fence to the neighbor's property, because that's just the most efficient way to get there. It's not, they could walk on the street, but it goes a little bit further. And they spend 2 hours like working the farm, like shoveling manure, like not like manual slave labor, but it's more of like getting a physical understanding of what it's like to take care of the land and animals. And they ride the horses, and they saw the cattle giving birth, and it's amazing. Like, and I'm just like, this is our life, Like I love it.
Yeah. Let's go back to the first question. Like, what would you say you're really good at in order that you found yourself in this place?
Yeah, I think there's a quote. I forget it, but basically, like, if those who take a risk temporarily lose their footing, those who never do may never find themselves, or something like that. So I think that I've taken risks, and I think about all the risks that I've taken by like leaving the job that was about to pay me double, which felt crazy at the time and might even still feel crazy. And bartending after getting a Ivy League degree, and at New Blue. I mean, to me, it was like I found this spot that just felt great, and I was like, I want that adventure. Like when I met my wife, I had very little savings, but I also had no debt. So my skill was I found a way, despite I didn't come from money, but I found a way to live my dream life now, like doing not waiting for it. And that might have been irresponsible in some ways, because again, I wasn't building up the wealth, but I was living. I'm going to make a fun analogy here. Why do people admire rock stars?
For me, I'll tell you why. When I was watching Trey Anastasio, from Fish, I was a kid watching him riff once in Ireland. I had illumination. Oh, I get it. This guy is mastered a craft.
Totally.
Such that he can spiritually embark through that craft to express his being, his soul. And isn't that what we all want to do in some senses, like fully express ourselves somehow, but you have to first master craft to do that, whether it's writing, singing, playing a sport, something, drawing, painting, cooking, something, so that you could fully
literally could be the craft of being unabashedly yourself and the craft of truly not giving a fuck. Like the point is, I think what people, more so even than the craft of playing guitar and emoting, what people, because there's been rock stars that are just frontmen or women who hadn't spent the thousands of hours like the guitarist, but they sell it because they have this energy, this aura. And that aura is what we're buying into. We're buying into this aura, at least this perception that this person is free. And when we are watching that, you are the way even a concert is set up is worship, right? Is somebody on stage, somebody in front of you who is expressing that I could dress and act and be something that you can't. And so you are, or maybe you could, but you haven't yet. You're not doing it, right? You're not doing it. So what I see, and I've always felt that way. That's where I know my admiration for rock stars. And the analogy I'm going to make is Donald Trump. He's the same.
Yeah, exactly.
People admire this guy. He doesn't give a fuck.
Because he's up there just being him, unabashedly.
Not that that's a great thing for the leader of the free world, but that's where admiration comes from, is this sense of freedom.
I'm taking away energy, which is where we started. I love that. And the other one is the risk-taking. It's like practicing the, risk-taking. But you embody an energy that I think it's amazing. Because I haven't seen you for, when's the last, I can't remember the last.
I know, you look the same to me too, so it doesn't matter. Yes. It really is truly practice. And there are some people I've got the real pleasure in my life of affecting me. And one of them is a guy named Sean Stevenson, who has passed away recently, or a couple of years ago, actually right before COVID. But he was, he had brittle bones disease. They called him the 3-foot giant. I mean, he was in a wheelchair his whole life. But he's a guy who just, talk about energy, hilarious, big energy, spoke on stages. I met him at the first Summit at Sea. He opened for Richard Branson and got a standing ovation, and Branson didn't. He became a mentor. I ended up filming some stuff for him. He has these conferences, but he would say things like, if you're on a pedestal, it's your job to knock yourself off the pedestal, because when you're on the pedestal, everyone else is going to try and knock you off that pedestal, And so I look at it as if anyone talks to him, he would give this amazing speech and talk to people, and then I would be with him, and then people would come up to him and be like, "Sean, you're so inspirational. Thank you." He'd be like, "I kind of got to poop. Do you know where the closest bathroom is?" We're "Do I stink?" I think I stink. He would, and it would catch people off guard, but really what it would do is just show them this is just a human being too,
Guts is a Skin Deep media production. The show is produced by Sundus Hassan Noli, video by Dane Montezan, with editorial support from Ants Cabral and executive produced by me, Topaz Adizes. Special thanks to all the guests who showed guts, without whom there will be no getting under the skin. Interested in joining our community and following this journey? Visit guts.podcast on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And check out our website, theskindeep.com, for in-depth conversation card games to create the space for connection, intimacy, and deeper conversation. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep having the guts to get under the skin.